Welcome back to Pokemon episode summaries. Today, I'll be doing episode 101, the Mandarin Island Mismatch. The episode begins with Ash currently on Mandarin Island with Tracy and Misty, as he was battling a trainer with their Butterfree and managed to knock it out with Bulbasaur's Razor Leaf, giving him the win. This wasn't his first win though, as he had won against many other trainers on this island prior to this, and because of this, he was beginning to get a little overconfident. He should have learned his lesson after the Indigo League, but I guess he hadn't. As Tracy and Misty point out how lucky Ash was that a grass type was able to beat a flying type, Ash's stomach begins to growl, and he proclaims that since he'd won all these battles, he deserved a meal. So, Ash and the gang decide to go to a little bar by the ocean and have something to eat. Tracy was still getting his food, but Ash, Misty, Pikachu, and Bulbasaur were all happily eating. Suddenly, Tracy came back with not his food, but a piece of paper that informed them of an upcoming battle demonstration that was going to be put on by one of the Kanto Elite Four, Lorelei, and her ice types, in order to teach some trainers about the skills that the Elite Four had. Misty gets very excited by this news, as she held Lorelei in very high regard as her hero, due to Lorelei commanding ice types so well, which were in such close relation to water types. She then revealed that a lot of Lorelei's biggest fans called her by her nickname, Prima. Right as Misty says all this, she then becomes even happier as Lorelei herself shows up at the bar, in all her fancy and beautiful glory. Misty and Tracy are in absolute amazement and immediately go up to Lorelei and proceed to introduce themselves, wanting to get on her good side, obviously. But Ash is too busy to go up, as he almost chokes on the sandwich he was eating due to his shock. It didn't really matter though, as Lorelei kinda ignored Tracy and Misty anyway, being more focused on how cute Misty's Togepi was. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was spying on Ash and the gang as usual from some bushes, and were eating while they did so. They immediately spotted Lorelei, and James immediately recognized her, although he couldn't quite put his finger on who it was, probably just because he knew that the person was famous, but he didn't know who they were. Back with Ash and the gang, Lorelei had now become distracted by not Togepi, but by the beauty of the ocean, as she made many comments about nature and how trainers and Pokemon were connected to it. All of this confused Misty and Tracy, along with the fact that they were confused at why Lorelei was always zoning out and shit. But Ash didn't care whatsoever, knowing that Lorelei was an Elite Four member, and therefore just wanted to battle her. He tries to interrupt her philosophical bullshit multiple times to ask her to battle, but she just continues to go on and on, ignoring him, leading Misty to scold Ash for attempting to ruin Lorelei's preachings. Ash once again proves he doesn't give a fuck about what Lorelei was talking about with nature and all that, and proceeds to ask her again, only to get ignored once again. Ash interprets this as Lorelei essentially being too scared to battle and just trying her best to ignore him, so he decides to go find someone else to battle as a result. Immensely pissed off by this point. Thankfully for Ash, he is able to find a new trainer to battle, and even offers to let him set up the rules how he wanted, as he was just so eager to battle, he didn't care what the battle was. The trainer agrees and suggests a 2v2, as the battle begins with Lorelei, Tracy, and Misty observing, due to Ash only having to run a few feet away from them to find this challenge. Ash decides to send out his Squirtle, as his opponent sends out a Persian. Tracy immediately warns Ash with his Persian because it had a straight tail, which indicated that it had done plenty of battles in the past, as its tail had likely been straightened by the numerous attacks it had endured. As the battle begins with Squirtle missing a water gun, the Persian then fires off a Thunder Shock. I don't know how it was capable of learning this, but Squirtle is able to reduce a lot of the damage it takes by using Withdraw to get back into its shell into safety. With the Persian then caught off guard, Squirtle hops back out of its shell and uses Skull Bash to knock out the Persian in one hit, forcing the trainer to send out his second Pokemon, Tauros, which instantly goes for a tackle attack, knocking out Squirtle in one hit as well, forcing Ash to send out his second Pokemon, Charizard, much to Misty and Tracy's worry. Although Ash, due to being overconfident from all his recent wins, stated with assurance that he could handle the Charizard. Of course, Ash was wrong about this, and Charizard proceeds to burn him, and then yawn, signifying it was bored and wanted to go the fuck to sleep. Lorelei watched this with immense interest, noting that Ash still had a long way to go as a trainer, and taking notes on how he could do better. The Tauros then decided to use Takedown on the Charizard, but Charizard instantly knocked out the Tauros with a flamethrower, burning it to a crisp. Charizard was angered by Tauros' attempt to injure it still, and proceeded to angrily fire its flamethrower some more, despite winning the battle, hitting the area all over. This led Ash to panic, obviously not wanting to be fined for any damages, so he tried to recall Charizard back to its Pokeball, but Charizard simply avoided the beam, and angrily fires yet another flamethrower at Ash, which makes direct contact. When Lorelei sees Ash gets injured and not be able to do anything, she realizes that it's her duty as an Elite Four member to step in, and proceeds to send out her Slowbro, who uses a Disable to freeze Charizard in midair, allowing Ash to recall it back into its Pokeball, as Charizard then drops to the ground, being released from the Disable. With Ash's safety now cemented, Lorelei then proceeds to disappointingly scold him for how bad of a trainer he was if he couldn't control his Charizard. Ash rebuttals that he was a good trainer since he made it into the top 16 in the Indigo League, but Lorelei isn't impressed by this at all, as she's an Elite Four member. She's way above the main league. She then takes her leave, but invites Ash and the gang to come to her demonstration that she was doing, saying that Ash could definitely learn some tips from her. Ash and the gang all very much happily accept, wanting to learn the skills of an Elite Four member. Later that day, the demonstration begins at the local stadium, with Ash and the gang watching from the stands, with Ash preparing to take as many notes as possible, and Team Rocket also watching, having snuck in disguised as food vendors, planning to steal Lorelei's Pokemon so they could use them to her advantage, as James had now conveniently remembered who Lorelei was after hearing the announcer introduce her. Anyways, the demonstration began with Lorelai showing off her skills against many Pokemon, such as a Marowak, with the help of her Cloyster. Ash, well, of course, was taking many notes, and Tracy was taking the opportunity to sketch, likely only sketching Lorelai due to being the simp that he was. Misty, on the other hand, simply just watches in amazement at her idol. After the demonstration ends, despite Lorelai's seemingly having a disinterest in Ash, she decides to invite Ash and the gang to her house for some tea, stating that she wanted to talk to them. As soon as Ash and the gang arrive, Misty and Tracy immediately go to thanking her for inviting them, and congratulating all her Pokemon on their immense skill. Ash, however, thinks that something was a little bit suspicious about the fact that Lorelai, who was seemingly not interested in them at all, was now suddenly interested in them having tea at her house, and suggested that maybe she was trying to teach them something. Misty and Tracy deny this, arguing that Lorelai probably wouldn't waste her time to try and teach people like them, and she probably just wanted someone to have tea with. Lorelai then confirms that Ash was right though, stating that the reason why she wanted to talk to them was because she wanted to give Ash a little bit of a lesson. She explains that you need to have essentially an alter ego when you're in battle versus out of battle, so that you're able to trick your opponents with reverse psychology and catch them off guard, stating as an example how she had a calm demeanor and usually went with the flow, like the water, outside of battle, but when she was battling, she was as cold as ice. Also referencing the two main types that she commanded. She then proceeds to give Ash more lessons as she goes outside, explaining that the most important thing that a trainer needed to be aware of was their strengths versus their weaknesses, using Ash's Charizard as an example to state that while Ash's strength was clearly his battle prowess, as he was able to get a lot of wins, his weakness was his bond with some of his Pokemon, such as his Charizard, which wasn't strong enough. Tracy and Misty try their best to take all this advice in, but Ash, on the other hand, is still preoccupied by his sheer want to battle, although he does promise to try his best to understand Lorelai's teachings, even if he has to relearn them from Misty and Tracy, I guess. Lorelai decides to accept and take Ash to her backyard stadium, hoping that it would give her more information so she could teach him even more lessons. She declares that it'll be a one-on-one battle and sends out her Cloyster, as Ash decides to send out his Pikachu to prove that he did have bonds with most of his Pokemon after all. Pikachu starts off by using his Thunderbolt, but Cloyster manages to block the attack by withdrawing into its shell to hide itself. Pikachu then rushes at it with agility, but it's deflected as Cloyster puts up a reflect barrier. This leads Pikachu to go for his most powerful electric attack, Thunder, and it actually manages to do damage, although it also enrages the Cloyster, turning it red. Ash has never seen an attack like this before, and Tracy informs him that it was called Rage, and what it did was raise the Pokemon's attack power. So now, Cloyster was going to be extra powerful, as it proceeded to use an Aurora Beam to counter Pikachu's quick attack, and then quickly finish it off with a very powerful takedown, leading Pikachu to lose the battle, and Ash to pick him up in his arms to try and comfort him. Lorelai then recalls Cloyster, and goes up to Pikachu to comfort it as well, as it took him quite the beating. She smiles, knowing that Ash did have a bond with Pikachu after all, and states that if he was able to get this bond with all of his Pokemon, then he would have all the skills he needed to become the Pokemon Master he desired, leaving him with a reminder that he should always put his Pokemon and friends first, as without their support, he wouldn't be able to get anywhere, as his Pokemon were the ones actually responsible for battling and winning the badges. She also reveals to Ash that if he manages to win all of the gym badges in the Orange League, he'll be presented with a trophy that would cement him as an honorable trainer in the Orange Islands. Ash states that he had already heard about the trophy, but didn't really know about the league's significance to the island, and states that he will make sure to try his best to bond with his Pokemon and win the league. Lorelai affirms that he should try his best to win, but assures him that winning was not all that matters, and you also had to lose from your losses as well. And this causes Ash to remember what Richie had told him, I'm sure. I mean, we don't see any indication of this in the actual episode, but Richie basically said the exact same thing. So hopefully this cements in Ash's mind that losing wasn't all bad. Now, the episode could have ended happily there, but Team Rocket show up, surprise, 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 in their Meowth balloon, and they request Lorelai for a CD recording of everything she just said, so that they could listen to her advice more closely, as if they were actually going to take her advice seriously. Come on, man. They just wanted it, probably so they could repawn it off, being from an Elite Four member, so people would probably pay a lot for her advice. Anyways, Ash and the gang are shocked that Lorelai was seemingly recording everything she said to them, but she reveals that it was only because she wanted to spread her advice to even more trainers than just Ash and the gang, and adds that Ash and the gang still got a heavy benefit from hearing her teachings in person, as that means they wouldn't have to pay for what she was selling the recording for, which was fucking $19. She also added that she was only selling the recording on tape, as opposed to CD, so that would mean that her teachings would go to more classical people who used tapes still. Team Rocket get pissed off at this, not having a tape, and decide that they should just give up on trying to sell her teachings off, and bitterly do their motto, revealing their plan to steal Ash's Pikachu, as usual. Misty questions why they weren't trying to steal from Lorelai of all people, as Lorelai likely had stronger Pokemon, with Team Rocket stating that while they were originally planning on doing that, like they said, they had decided not to, as they realized that Lorelai was way too strong after watching her demonstration battles, so they decided to just go back to the status quo and try and steal Ash's Pikachu. Ash and Pikachu get pissed off at this, as they should, and proceed to get ready to fight Team Rocket, doing as they usually would. However, Lorelai steps in and is like, yo, no offense, Ash, but I can probably end this even quicker than you, so let me handle this. She then proceeds to send out her Jinx, and it immediately uses Ice Punch to encase Team Rocket in a block of ice, unable to move, and then Jinx follows up with a blizzard, which creates such strong winds that it's able to blow the block of ice off the ground, blasting Team Rocket off into the sky, shattering the ice, and causing it to form a whole bunch of little ice crystals, which sparkle in the sky, to everyone's amazement. Hell, Misty and Tracy probably thought that this was as beautiful as Lorelai herself. Anyways, later that evening, after Ash and the gang had some more tea at Lorelai's place, Lorelai sends them off before informing them that their next spot on their journey should be Trovita Island, as that's where the third Orange League gym was. Adding that it wouldn't be a far trek, because Trovita Island was right across from Mandarin Island. Ash and the gang decide to follow Lorelai's advice as they begin heading there, saying goodbye to Lorelai and thanking her for all that she had taught Ash. But really, all she did was restate what shit he already knew. Like, he already knew about bonding with Pokemon, he already knew that you needed power from the inside, and all that shit. But, whatever. I guess he needed to relearn it.